Well, apart from all that, I've tried to spend my working life on, like your interest, on the people who didn't benefit from education. In 3 weeks after David became Secretary of State, Helena Kennedy's report was pushed around. She argued, if at first you don't succeed, you don't succeed. And in Britain, it's absolutely clear from all of the research that Naomi led for us around participation by adults in learning, that there's a kind of deep, serious social Darwinism at play, that class, in length of initial education, age, gender, all are strong predictors of whether you're likely to engage in learning later in your lives. And of course, her work too showed that the digital divide reinforces and is predictable along the same lines as the learning divide, as you were illustrating, Helen. There's nothing inevitable about this, but it's extraordinary how often we work to reinforce the existing power structures. Naomi's work threw up a very clear picture that when you ask people who say they've done no learning since school, whether they're likely to join in the next 3-4 years, 11% say, well, maybe. You ask people who've done some learning in the last 3 years, 88% say yes. Now, that kind of division produces pressures amongst the already involved in education to use up the spaces, and it reinforces the marginalisation of the marginalised. But as I say, there's nothing inevitable about it. If you think of the role broadcasting had when we all shared a relatively small number of channels together, in my beginning of my working life, I was privileged to help start the campaign to teach adults to read and write. It's the multiplication of impact of that campaign that On the Move created, happy 10-minute slots, 10 minutes on a Sunday tea time with Bob Hoskins, absolutely transformed the situation for people who didn't read and write. Suddenly, previous educational failure became a motivational tool for joining in. And the point I most want to make is that for adults, motivation is curriculum. If you learned at first that education wasn't for you, you need creative ways of engaging, because it's as easy as pie to do the most wonderful things once you believe in it and once you see yourself as somebody who will participate. But my worry is with the disaggregation of our common experience, the narrow range of choices we had with 4 or 5 or 3 or 2 television channels, into the diaspora of choices we now have with the net and the myriad of cable channels you can get. It's extremely difficult together to secure an environment in which the triggers are powerful and common enough. And so I think that puts an even bigger pressure on broadcasters and on me and on new technology educators, always to ask not what we can do to reinforce and develop and enrich the educational mix that we can for those people who've already begun, but to think, how is it that we can provide new triggers and new systems to get people going? You see, I was saying to Melvin before we began, that the 150,000 people, he was telling me, who go online in response to science education on Radio 4, a fantastic illustration of people dealing with things we've otherwise found very difficult. But how many people who've never enjoyed education in their family, who have no access to the internet, can now look on our mass media and expect the kind of imaginative triggers on a day-by-day basis that can transform learning opportunities and create the kind of equality of chances in life that really a technologically rich society ought to be able to offer? I'm afraid I don't think very many. Thank you.